How will Ty Simpson and Ryan Williams perform on the road at Missouri? Is Haynes King and Georgia Tech looking ahead to Duke? And a prop bet in Red River. We'll get to all those prop bets and more in 900 seconds or less. But first, we got to tell you about breaking news from overnight. Quarterback Sam Leavitt listed as doubtful, and now we've seen the market take Utah up to an 8.5-point favorite, most likely across the board, with a total now of 45. Bobby and I gave out the under 48.5 Wednesday night, and that 45 probably not playable with the announcement of the quarterback injury, and we're seeing that Jeff Sims most likely is the quarterback. So no opinion there. However, if you guys do want to go over to the futures market, I would take a look at playing Utah here plus 950. This just absolutely is not priced right. It's not correlated to what we're seeing in the sides market right now with the Arizona State-Utah game. So if you're late to the party on Utah-Arizona State, definitely recommend a bet on Utah plus 950 to win the Big 12 conference. But then you can always hedge out if you like the Texas Tech side, who's most likely going to be the opponent in the Big 12 Conference Championship. The other injury game that you need to know about, John Mateer upgraded to probable. That has flipped Oklahoma to being now the favorite against Texas in the Red River shootout. The total has jumped up to 45. If this ticks up any higher, that's definitely a bet for me on the under. Anything can happen in this game. Obviously, Mateer could re-injure that hand or simply just be unable to throw with the velocity that we've seen him throw at so far this season, just due to the nature of the hand beginning to swell as the game progresses. And we also know that both those teams have stout defenses. So I think probably too much over money has come in considering the health of that hand for John Mateer. Waterboy is with us each and every Friday. He is a prop specialist. Waterboy, I know we have a underplay on Arch Manning rushing here in Red River.
Yeah, if you look at the Florida game, kind of a bad beat there in the sense of that he had 15 rushes. His line was about 24.5, and he had, of the 14 rushes, they added up to -1 yard, and then he had one in the fourth quarter. The perfect blitz call. They got him beat, and guy just takes a bad angle, kind of falls across him. Manning gets out, rushes for 36 yards. So you've got him getting, 36 yards on one run, finishing with 35 because he was at -1 before then. I just think against a Oklahoma defense that has a much higher sack rate than Florida. Florida got 6, and right. I think with an even higher sack rate, Sarkett, talked a lot in the press conference about how his strength is, the deep ball. They're trying to buy him time to set it up. That offensive line just can't do that. He's got the most carries in this rushing attack. I think it's just a situation where Oklahoma's going to be keying off this. They have stopped, they've stopped Bryce Underwood. They've stopped Jackson Arnold. They're going to, tinker with their game plan, but it's the same one that wants to just keep harassing Manning and making it difficult for him. And that starts with not allowing him to roll out, not allowing him to get any running game going. They want to keep him in that pocket and just go after him. So it's already dropped down to about, I think I last saw 16.5. And I think it's, I probably wouldn't play it at 16.5, but if you can find anything that's 19, 20 around there, I think that they'll just get enough sacks to, you're looking at, as long as he doesn't break some, 36 yarder, I think it's one of those where the probability is it's very playable.
Jumping ahead to the Alabama at Missouri game. Alabama currently laying a field goal in Missouri with a total of 51.5. And this is a game where we like Ryan Williams to go over the receiving yards again this week.
Yeah, it's been, as much as there's an even distribution of touches and targets in this offense, for whatever reason, I think you've just had a few things happen to keep his line down longer than it would normally be. And situation's the same as last week with matchup, with a weak secondary, ball control, but still wanting to press it and get points. So I don't think there's really not any change in matchup stylistically and philosophically what you're wanting to do. Biggest thing is I think it just hasn't adjusted for that. You're looking at FSU. He played 80% of his snaps in the slot, which he's not going to be doing anymore. Then he misses one game due to the concussion. He comes back, has a huge game against Wisconsin. Then he has a 40-ish yard game against Georgia, but he drops the big touchdown. He has a bad block after dropping the touchdown because he's down, and then he misses 30 snaps. So you see that the two games where we're under just have very unique outliers with the percentage of snaps in the slot and with the issue with playing 30 less snaps. So a normal game of production for him is sitting around 85 yards.
Absolutely. I think this is one too where you liked the alternate touchdown prop for Ty Simpson if you can get it at plus 175 or better.
Yeah, that was just because I liked it at 150. I think it was 125, 150 last week, and he had a ton of red zone targets, just took some bad sacks, really just some very conservative play calling. I don't think there'll be that was one thing they noted in press conferences this week. Got to get better about not taking those sacks, keeping it in manageable third downs, executing better in the red zone. So I just think there's been a big emphasis on red zone execution, and he still had 2 touchdowns early. So I think you've got that bit better red zone execution, get one more. And Missouri really hasn't been tested in the red zone of their teams that, their whole schedule. Teams have only had 10 trips there, and they come away with 4 passing touchdowns out of the 10, and they really haven't faced any really top-tier passing offenses yet.
Moving ahead to Georgia Tech taking on Virginia Tech. This is one where maybe Haynes King and the Yellow Jackets could be looking ahead to next week's big showdown against Duke. But this is one where we think they'll take care of business, and we like the under 242 passing yards.
If I had to pick, if you made me say, what of your props this week do you want to put 2 units on, this would probably be the one, just because the probability of how often this goes under and just how over the last 3 years, Key and King and that offense has just been, as a team, just how predictable they've been on how they want to play offense. You go back to 2023 till now, they've gone over this line several times in losses. He'll have about 300 passing yards in losses. But of their wins, there's one against UNC in 2023. There's 2 last year against Georgia State and against the Virginia Military Institute. And then this year, we finally have one against Wake Forest where they barely won in overtime. And he throws a about 18-yard pass in overtime to put him over 242. So this is just something that the way they play football, if they're a 14-point favorite over Virginia Tech and they get to a 2-3 score lead, they're going to just run the ball, throw it short, play possession, and not beat themselves by turning it over.
In a game that we think we will see a lot of passing, C.J. Bailey taking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame laying 23.5. The total has ticked down from the mid-60s now to, I believe, 58.5. This is one where we think C.J. Bailey might be a little more efficient than the 2 quarterbacks Notre Dame's previously faced in Maddox Madsen and Taylor Green.
That's really what it's based on. You go to quarterback completion percentage, and Bailey is just far better than the other quarterbacks. He's just more accurate. And you see these other guys still got up in those low 200s. And so I think with North Carolina State likely being behind, there'll be obviously a heavier passing script, and Bailey has weapons. This team they're not great, but they're not anywhere close to going off the rails like an Arkansas is. And, they'll be able to at least kind of keep pace with Notre Dame. I think I think Notre Dame is much better than their resume shows. If they 2 games, a few plays here and there go their way, they've got probably two of the best wins in college. Two of the best wins in college football against Miami, Texas A&M. So I think this is one that it should probably be in the 260s, but since it opened 240, I'll take a really accurate passer who needs to be throwing a lot.
Rounding out the show with another ACC matchup, Tommy Castellanoes and the Florida State Seminoles take on Pitt. Current side is Florida State laying 10 with a total of 58. And this is a game where we think Tommy will go under his rushing yards again for the second straight week.
Yeah, if you look at, the big thing here in college is that, if you, like last night, if you're watching NFL and you like Jackson Dart and you like his 30-ish yard rushing, if he takes a 15-yard sack, it doesn't bother you because it's not taken away from his total. But in college, with sacks being deducted from rushing yards, you look at teams that are in that top 10 at sack rate, and they create like Oklahoma at number 1. They just create so many negative plays that not only does it take away from your rushing yards, offensive coordinators stop calling that. Like, okay, if you're going to keep sacking me, we're going to scrap that play. Let's build heavier protections. Let's do some quick throws outside. They just will really take away that quarterback run, just how they clog it up. If they're and so Pitt's up there they're up around Miami and Oklahoma area in rush defense. They always have a really good rush defense. That's kind of something philosophically with their head coach. Their defensive coordinator and that staff has played against Castellanos when he was at Boston College. They held him to, I think, like 11 of 20-something. And obviously a very different offense with Malzahn, but they know how important stopping his legs are. And so I think they keep that theme up, and they run a lot of complicated, exotic run blitzes. And they've said in the press conference several times, it's that concept of making Tommy beat us with his arm. We want to, we know how dangerous he is with his legs. They constantly mention that. And I think this is a game that I wouldn't be shocked if Pittsburgh pulled it off and won the game outright. I think this is one where freshman quarterback, if he doesn't make a ton of mistakes and he plays, he's able to execute the offense better than Eli Holston. And I think that defense, we've seen it with FSU. If that defense starts to sputter, it can really start to get away from them in terms of field position, time of possession, and just how much that defense is out there. So that's one of the things you ask Auburn fans about Gus Malzahn. They laugh and like he's an automatic 4 losses with the way he plays. He'll win you 2-3 games that you shouldn't win, that are crazy upsets, and then you'll lose to 4 average teams just because they're able to stop his gimmicks.
Finishing up the show with a last ACC game. This is one where Waterboy and I both have the same logic, but came to 2 different conclusions. I recommend a bet here on the under 55, and Waterboy likes the side. He likes Clemson at -14 or better.
Yeah, I would say 14 is as high as I would go. I liked it just grabbing it early when it was 13.5 at 115. That was the best I could get. I think that the biggest thing to come from the UNC game is, sure, UNC is in total free fall. And, that was a that line should have been minus 28 or something. They're just that bad, and they're in that much disarray. But it doesn't matter how bad UNC is. That doesn't affect how Clemson comes out and plays and executes, and the intensity that they show. And I think for them I was surprised at the intensity they came out with when you're mathematically very, very low probability of making it to your conference championship game, making it to the playoffs, and everybody still played really hard, still was intense. I think that will carry over to Boston College. They can't, every game's meaningful to them now. Boston College is kind of in a tailspin, late game at home, probably not a lot of people coming out, something that I think Clemson will be keyed up for a lot more than them. And the biggest thing that doesn't get put to Clemson's credit as much is that Antonio Williams, their number one wide receiver, he makes that offense go. It's just a huge trickle-down effect of defense. I mean, because you go from now my third-string secondary player, whether it be a safety, nickel, is it going to have to be, in the way I run this, is it a hybrid linebacker? Instead of being on a freshman, he's now on TJ Moore. And now, your second-best corner is on Wesco. And now you've got a linebacker trying to cover Randall out the flat. And so it just – you see it. TJ Moore, even though I had Antonio Williams under and he went under, TJ Moore just explodes finally because teams are they started with that. They started with a play to Antonio Williams. Everybody goes and throws it to TJ Moore for a 75-yard touchdown. That's just how much defenses respect him. And this is the first time UNC where he's back healthy and they've been able to practice with him. So I think that's something really not quite as priced in. I would have this probably like minus 21 or minus, at best, minus 17, minus 16.5. I think this is one where you just look at after he got injured against LSU in their loss to Georgia Tech, no Antonio Williams, lost to Syracuse. He came back, but had not really been able to practice at all up until then. And then finally, you have a bye week, you go play, and he's had 2 weeks for you to practice your offense fully with him healthy. And all of a sudden, Klubnik, everybody else looks better. And yes, UNC's terrible, but, it's hard to complete some of those passes sometimes against air. And it just looked a lot more efficient of an offense.
Best bet recap time. We like Utah plus 950 to win the conference if you've missed out on getting the best of the number in the Utah-Arizona State game. Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, we like Haynes King under 242 passing yards. Alabama, Missouri, we like Ryan Williams to go over his 70.5 receiving yards. And if you can get it, the alt on Ty Simpson to go over 3 touchdown passes. In the Red River Shootout, we like Arch Manning to go under 20.5 or better rushing yards. North Carolina State at Notre Dame, we like quarterback C.J. Bailey of the Wolfpack to go over 240.5 passing yards. In Pitt, Florida State, we like Castellanoes to go under 65.5 rushing yards. And in a game that the Waterboy and I both agree on, we like the under 55 and the Clemson Tigers laying the 14 in Clemson at Boston College. You can follow the show at CFB900 on X. You can follow the Waterboy at the Waterboy_TI, also on Twitter. Bobby and I will be back here on Sunday night, breaking down everything that happened in Week 7 for you with our top takeaways and also as well as looking ahead to Sunday's market openers for Week 8. Waterboy will be back here on Friday, breaking down player props. Until then, wishing you guys the absolute best of luck on all of your bets tomorrow. Adios.